You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. Today I have a special episode for you. I've decided to bring back the Storycast. If you're unfamiliar, our Storycast episodes are short story readings of work from authors associated with DPW in some capacity. I've always wanted to be more consistent with the Storycast episodes, including reading work of my own, but I just never really got around to it. Well, that changes today. I got my hands on an ARC of When Strange Things Bite, a collection of short horror stories by Stephenson, which you can pre-order right now, and it drops on January 31st. If you want more information, you can go on Instagram at L_Stephenson, or just look up L_Stephenson. He has plenty of information. He has a fun Instagram. He's always sharing work from other writers. And if you are in the indie writing community or want to read more indie work, he is your guy. He is someone who shares a lot of cool stuff, and he keeps me in the loop all the time. He also put together the Violent Advents collection that my story Maggot Party was featured in December. He just puts out a lot of cool work. He's always doing something, so definitely check him out. And today I will be reading his story, The Crimson Tower, from his upcoming short story collection, When Strange Things Bite. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. The Crimson Tower by L. Stephenson. At first it sounded like an airplane flying overhead. Overhead planes always made Alec Jennings nervous. That unstoppable rumble of rolling thunder from above, getting louder and louder, closer and closer. He would say a prayer as he imagined a gigantic tube with wings obliterating the entire tower block that he called home within mere seconds. But then it would vanish, the threat of its roar dissipating into the distance. This time it did not stop. The commotion was deafening. Whatever it wasn't flying. It was falling. Alec tried to move from the sink where he had been brushing his teeth, but he was too afraid. His greatest fear was coming to pass, and the pit in his knotted stomach was weighing him down as if his guts were made of lead. Even if he could call out for help, nobody would be able to hear him. It was too late. That tiny coffin of a bathroom in which he stood began to shake all around him. He watched the contents of the glass shelf under the mirror vibrate to the edge and topple into the sink. He watched the cracks form in the ceiling like tiny earthquakes. He traced the little showers of dust that fell from them down to the floor. Then there was a moment, a breath. Everything fell quiet. Alec felt his heart stall inside his chest. Another breath. Boom! The void of silence exploded with the shriek of splintering wood, the frantic drumming of falling dirt and stones, the furious hiss of a million shivering leaves, and the shrill chorus of terrified animal retreaters. There was a sharp clink. The bathroom window had cracked down the middle like a frozen pond underfoot. For a few moments, Alex still couldn't move, his shoulders hunched with fright. But as his heart continued to pound and his lungs continued to breathe in and out, it slowly dawned on him that he was still alive. Raising a wary hand, he reached out for the break in the glass. Before he could touch its jagged surface, he hesitated, taking hold of the handle instead. He turned it gently, mindful of the fractured pane giving way. With a click, it slowly began to open, and the disturbance in the morning air seeped in. Bird song and the rush of the morning commute had been replaced by the distant echoes of car alarms and barking dogs throughout the surrounding neighborhood. Alec peered through a dust-peppered curtain of smoke. The tree line that belonged to the local children's park across the street below was gone, crushed into the earth by the thing that towered up into the sky at such a menacing height. To Alec's human eyes, it looked like a tornado made of glowing red graphite, a crimson cone spinning steadily, humming to itself a lullaby carried with it through countless stars. He could still see the climbing chasm in the clouds where it broke through. Its walls were collapsing, melting shut, as if even heaven wanted no part in its arrival. The strange craft began to swarm with black clumps of alien tissue. Leathery and slimy, they slithered over the surface of the monstrosity like a nest of baby spiders. A metallic shriek ripped through the air as its extraterrestrial children stopped dead in their tracks. Alec gripped the windowsill as he felt them all fix on the tower block. With the sickening gurgle of an intestinal growl, 1,000 war cries sounded out as the creatures leapt into the space between the ship and the tower. An attack wall of monster flesh hurtling across the divide. A grunt escaped Alec as he slammed the bathroom window shut, but before he could reach for a key, there was a sudden loud, wet smack as day turned to night. The splitting glass braced against the dark mass that clung to it. The thing squelched and grumbled as it sucked and groped at the other side. Alec's hand trembled as he slowly picked up the key, forced it into the lock, and turned. 3 knocks he then heard. Not from the window, but from the door to his apartment. They weren't frantic knocks either. They were patient, almost friendly. Closing the bathroom door shut behind himself, Alec crept up the hallway and peered through the peephole. Just then the latch turned itself and the door opened. "Oh, sorry," the handsome stranger laughed. "You must be the new guy. I'm Melanie's brother, Steve." The man's smile was friendly too as he brushed past him and into the apartment. "Ow," Alec managed, sweat pouring down either side of his face. "Nice to meet you, Al." Steve waited for him in the hall. "Are the kids ready? We were going to take them to the park." "Bathroom," Alec responded, narrowing his eyes in his confusion. "Do you not realize what's happening here? Am I too early?" Steve gasped as he bared his teeth with embarrassment. "Oh God, did I just interrupt you guys? That's not what Jesus!" Steve exclaimed as his face screwed up. "Man, are you cooking something? 'Cause it smells like you burned it half to hell." At this unexpected visitor's insistence, Alec went to check the kitchen for fires while Steve made his way towards the bathroom. "Don't go in there," he warned him. Steve responded with a blood-curdling scream. Alex raced through the apartment to find Steve barely holding himself up against the sink as he choked on his tears. In the bathtub were 3 corpses, a woman and 2 children, charred black from head to toe. Their faces were frozen in their final moments of agony. The hair had melted into their scalps as they huddled together in the center to die. Alec watched silently from the doorway as their uncle sank to his knees, folding over as he wept into the carpet. "Oh my God. Oh God. No!" The poor man wailed as he rocked from side to side. "You need to leave," Alec pressed him as he watched the window. "It's not safe here." Steve's head snapped up, his face blood red with a sorrow-fueled rage. "What did you do?" he roared, clawing the floor as he burst upright. Alec's words failed him as he saw the large looming shape behind him in the bathroom mirror as he backed into something sharp. Somehow it had made it inside undetected. Its rippling body mass was twice his size as it punctured the back of his neck with 2 long barbs. The world as Alec knew it began to swim, soft and warm as he fell back into the creature's grasp. It cradled him as they floated through the air of that apartment. In a haze somewhere between nightmare and euphoria, Alec watched himself, or at least someone that looked like him, argue with Steve. He could see why Steve was so mad at him. He was holding a blowtorch after all. That must have been what he went to the kitchen for. As he calmly levitated nearby, he watched the 2 of them struggle. The fight was a short but unpleasant one, ending only when the other Alec had successfully managed to pin poor Steve to the floor with both knees. At which point, he reignited the blowtorch with the silver lighter from his pants pocket and burned through each of Steve's eyeballs until he reached his brain. They both made a delightful pop as they gave way too, followed by a glorious sizzle, like gory little fireworks. The floor was empty when Alec woke, his alien carriage turning upright as it lowered him onto his feet. He let out a scream as several unknown objects punched through his person at once, painting the apartment wall in his blood. Barbs, longer, thicker, sharper ones, were shot through each of his limbs, holding him in place as 2 sickly, pale, sinewy appendages emerged from his captor's slippery dome. They burrowed into the back of his scalp meat with blades no longer than a baby needle. The strips and chunks that fell clung to the back of his shirt like lovingly mashed dog food. Meanwhile, an extra pair of extremities slurped their way out of the space-invading surgeon as they set to work fixing a metal collar, with bladed wings on either side around the patient's neck. Inserting the wings into the skin behind Alec's jaw, his face bloomed like a macabre flower, the blades opening out his cheeks like two gruesome petals. His words became indecipherable groans as he lost control of all the functions and muscles of his face. Drool, mucus, tears, and blood streamed down until they blended into a gooey, reddish-orange mixture beneath his chin. Yet somehow, in his gross state of being, he could feel his tormentor carefully and methodically tuning and calibrating his insides. As further adjustments were made, he saw flickering images of himself dragging Steve's body towards the bathroom, smoke still rising from his scorched eye sockets. With a bleep, Alec's body jolted as the monster closed the final circuit. His flayed cheeks vibrated as the veins emerged from the incised edges like vines growing searching for sunlight. Alec's eyes blinked 3 times before they rolled back. They glowed crimson as the veins went to work, closing every piece of hardware, intertwining over each wound until they had concealed every atrocity inflicted upon his flesh. The glow faded from his eyes as a tear rolled down his cheek. It happened again. How could it happen again? He told the man not to go in the room, didn't he? He even told him to leave. Why didn't he leave? Suddenly, the door to the apartment smashed open. Alec darted into the bathroom, locking himself inside. Turning from the door, he found the blowtorch sitting by the sink and Steve's corpse lying in the middle of the floor. Melanie and her 2 children were still together in the tub. There was no time to think or say anything for them all as heavy footsteps surged through his apartment. Retrieving the blowtorch, Alec turned the lock and the handle to the bathroom window one last time. He opened it wide, hoping for cool, fresh air, hoping for warm sunshine. He found neither, just the Crimson Tower, still spinning, still humming. The lock on the bathroom door flew off as they kicked it in. He could feel their presence as he turned around with a knowing smile to find the officers standing there with their guns aimed. "Drop the torch, Alec," the lead officer ordered, "and put your hands behind your head. It's over." "What about them?" Alec demanded, motioning his head toward the open window. "Do you mean to tell me that you're going to arrest me when the ones who are responsible for everything I've done, everyone I've hurt, are right out there?" "There's nothing there, son," said the lead officer with a sad expression on his face as he prepared to fire. "Now drop the torch. I'm not going to ask you again." Alec pointed the blowtorch for the window as he pleaded. He took the first one in the arm holding the torch, the next 2 in the stomach, then one in the chest, and finally one through the nose, snapping his head back through the window. He collapsed against the wall, sliding down until the back of his head came to a rest upon the windowsill. He gazed out into the sky as blood flooded his chest cavity. The Crimson Tower was gone. Or maybe it was still there. He couldn't be certain. His vision had turned red from the hole in his face overflowing into his eyes. "Someone cover them up," he heard the lead officer say before he slipped out of consciousness.